Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar this morning. I can see lots of people just entering the call at the moment. So we should just give it a few seconds as people start joining from around the world. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So as I'm sure you're already aware, our webinar today is titled Bridging the Mobile Disability Gap, and it's looking at advancing access and use of mobiles as assistive technology. And it's co-hosted by the Global Disability Innovation Hub and GSMA. So you'll be hearing lots more about both organisations as we go through the session today. So just a huge welcome to everybody. A few pieces of housekeeping. My name's Louise Gebbett and I will be your moderator for today. I am Director of Global Engagement for the Global Disability Innovation Hub. In terms of access needs for today's call, we do have closed captions, which you can activate on your screens by using the CC box, which should be in the toolbar at the bottom of your screens. And that will provide captions within your Zoom view. We also do have a stream text link that we'll be putting in the chat. So should you prefer to view it in that format, you can too. And we have international sign language for today's session. So our international sign languages will be pinned and will switch as they move through the session. So you should be able to access those if you are viewing on a laptop or a desktop computer. In some formats and some functions of mobiles and tablets, you also get that option, but it does depend on the current version of the Zoom that you're using. So if you're accessing the interpreters for today, we would recommend that you access via a laptop format. Okay, I can see lots of you are joining for today's session, so thank you so much. We shall be making a start and we'll be introducing first Professor Kathy Holloway, who will introduce herself and give a little bit more of an overview of what we'll be doing today and a bit of an introduction into the topic.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you all for joining us today from around the world. It's wonderful to see you all here. So we are all using these wonderful mobile phones in every aspect of our lives. And as a professor of computer science, I think one of the things that's been most stark in the last few years is seeing how mobile has penetrated all markets and all settings. It doesn't seem to matter where I am in the world. There are mobile phones and people can access mobile phones. And so today's session is about the possibilities and the responsibilities that come with mobile technology as an assistive tool. And I know that all of us will know that the minute our internet goes on our mobile phone, it feels much less useful than it does when it's internet enabled. This technology, both the mobile devices themselves and the software and the internet connectivity, are agnostic. It's neither inherently good nor bad. Its impact depends on how it is designed, how it's deployed, and how it's made accessible. It can be a force for inclusion, or, if we are not careful, a driver of deeper inequalities. Mobile phones are now the most widely available assistive technology globally. They cluster together multiple assistive functions in a single device, providing access to communication information, financial services, and social participation for persons with disabilities. However, the promise of this technology is not automatically realized. And if we do not address barriers such as affordability, digital skills, and accessibility, technology can accelerate societal inequalities, leaving the most marginalized even further behind. Today, we're focusing on two very exciting bits of research. The latest GSMA disability mobile gap work, which is always a treasure and a trove of information. And we'll hear about how this mobile disability gap persists. I don't want to give too much away, but it persists in both Africa and Asia. And some of the findings in that report are quite stark, I think, in terms of how this digital possibility of inclusion is actually not being realized. Separately, we're going to hear from Mariam Banduka on our Mobile as Assistive Technology project as part of 80-20-30. And that's a project where we gave out smartphones with internet to people across Asia, Africa, and South America. And we were looking to understand how this technology impacted people's lives. Did it shift the needle at all in people's quality of life? And how, if at all, would people with hearing impairments or people with visual impairments use these devices in life? Separately, and we're not going to talk about it too much today, but I wanted to mention it because of the importance, and that is AI. nearly all devices are now being AI driven. All of the big tech companies are fighting for AI. So any of the things that you see today, any of the trends that you see today, will just go on sort of steroids. They will completely accelerate with the advent of AI being embedded into our handsets. And part of our work at GDI Hub has been to try and develop new data sets which ensure that all people with communication impairments that, for example, speak Ga or Airway in Ghana, are included. And those data sets mean that people are included in the algorithms and therefore included in the handsets that people get. So on this note, I will hand you over back to Louise, and I hope that you really take away both the challenges and the opportunities, both from GSMA's global research and from our own work on the ground. We really do look for questions from you. Please do challenge the panel, including myself, because we want to work with you in figuring out how to make the future of technology truly inclusive. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for that introduction to the topic that we're covering in a lot more detail today. So we will shortly be diving into hearing from the GSMA on the Mobile Disability Gap Report. So it'll be a fantastic opportunity for us to delve deeper into this topic. I also just wanted to highlight that we'll be taking questions throughout the session today, and we'll be coming to them when we move into the discussion section towards the end. So please do, if you have any queries, questions, would like anything clarified from our panelists, please do use the Q&A box that you should be able to see in your toolbar, and we'll be coming to those questions as we move through the session. So I'd like to now welcome Bora from GSMA. Would you like to join us, Bora, and share your screen, and then introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about the work that you've been doing in this space?
Thank you, Louise, and hello, everyone. I'm Boral Bakapani. I'm an insights analyst at the GSMA, where I focus on digital inclusion research across low and middle income countries. This year, I've been leading our work on the mobile disability gap, and I'm really pleased to share with you today some of our latest findings. So just sharing my screen now. So before I dive in, perhaps you're asking yourself what the GSMA is. We're very unique in that we sit at the intersection of the mobile ecosystem and the development sector. And our market expertise allows us to inform and build partnerships between the mobile industry, tech innovators, governments, and the development sector. In my department, Mobile for Development, and particularly the digital inclusion team, ensures that no one is left behind by the opportunities afforded by digital inclusion, especially women, and most importantly for today's discussion, persons with disabilities. So more than 1.3 billion people globally live with some form of disability, and most of them lack access to assistive technologies. In low and middle income countries, 9 in 10 people with disabilities do not have the tools that they need to lead independent lives. And where access to assistive technologies is very limited, mobile phones can play a role as bespoke and cost-effective tools for persons with disabilities. And this is because they can cluster together multiple assistive technologies in a single device, and they can also provide access to mobile internet, mobile money, and other relevant services. And so as such, they can enable access, autonomy, and they can be a vital driver of social and economic inclusion for persons with disabilities. The best advocates of the value of mobile as an assistive technology are mobile users with disabilities themselves. And so I would like to invite you now to hear about the story of
আমি একজন বাক ও শ্রবণ প্রতিবন্ধী ব্যক্তি। আমার বড় বোন একজন ইশারা ভাষার দোভাষী। আমার ছোট ভাইয়ের মোবাইল এবং ইন্টারনেট ব্যবহারের আগে লাইফটা অনেক বেশি কঠিন ছিল। তো 2018 সালে সে ঢাকার একটা প্রতিবন্ধী বিদ্যালয়ে পড়াশোনা করতে আসে। ও একাই ঢাকায় থাকতো হোস্টেলে। তখন ওর কাছে কোনো মোবাইল ছিল না এবং ইন্টারনেট ব্যবহার করতো না। তো যোগাযোগের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা খুবই দুশ্চিন্তায় থাকতাম যে ও কেমন আছে, স্কুলে কিভাবে আছে। অনেক সময় দেখা যেত আমরা 3-4 দিন গিয়ে শুনেছি যে ও অসুস্থ ছিল। তো 2021 সালে সে তার এসএসসি পরীক্ষার পরে পরিবার থেকে তাকে মোবাইল ফোন দেওয়া হয় এবং সেটা ব্যবহারটা শিখে। আমার ছোট ভাই যখন প্রথম প্রথম মোবাইল ফোন ব্যবহার করতো তখন তার একটু একটু প্রবলেম হতো, সে অনেকগুলো অ্যাপস সম্পর্কে জানতো না যে এই অ্যাপস গুলা কি কারণে ব্যবহার করা হয়। তো সে এরপরে মোবাইল ইন্টারনেটের মাধ্যমে সে গুগল করে সেগুলা ফাইন্ড আউট করে যে কোন অ্যাপস এর কাজ কি। গত বছরের মাঝামাঝি সময়ে টিম ইনক্লুশন বাংলাদেশ ফাউন্ডেশন থেকে ইফতি একটা ট্রেনিং পায়, সেফ ডিজিটাল স্পেস ফর গার্লস অ্যান্ড ইয়ুথ, যেখানে ইন্টারনেট কিভাবে ব্যবহার করতে হবে, মোবাইল ফোন কিভাবে ব্যবহার করতে হবে এবং ইন্টারনেটের নানা দিক নিয়ে তাদেরকে একটা ট্রেনিং দেওয়া হয় এবং সেখান থেকে ইফতি জানতে পারে যে কিভাবে সেফলি ইন্টারনেটটা ব্যবহার করতে হয়। ইফতি অনেক বেশি অবগত এই অনলাইন প্রতারণার বিষয়টা নিয়ে এবং সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে কিন্তু সে খুব সতর্কতা সহিত সবকিছুই করে। ইশারা ভাষায় যোগাযোগ করার জন্য অবশ্যই ভিডিও কলে কথা বলতে হয়, ভিডিও করতে হয়। তো সেক্ষেত্রে মোবাইল ইন্টারনেট তাদের জন্য খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। সে মোবাইল ইন্টারনেট ব্যবহার করে অনেক ভিডিও বানাতে পারে, সে তার বন্ধুদের সাথে খুব ইজিলি কথা বলতে পারে ভিডিও কলে। সে ফানি, ইন্টারেস্টিং, মোটিভেশনাল, এডুকেশনাল, ইনফরমেটিভ অনেক ধরনের ভিডিও সে বানিয়ে তার ডেফ কমিউনিটির মাঝে ছড়িয়ে দেয়। এবং সে যে অনলাইন সার্ভিস গুলা কিন্তু সে খুব ভালোভাবেই করতে পারে, যেমন ফুড পান্ডা থেকে খাবার অর্ডার খুব ইজিলি ঘরে বসে পেমেন্ট করতে পারে, এগুলো সবকিছুই করতে পারে। মোবাইল ইন্টারনেট আমার ছোট ভাইয়ের জীবনটাকে অনেক বেশি সহজ করে দিয়েছে।
If this story highlights mobile's enabling potential, but for most persons with disabilities and LMICs, digital inclusion remains out of reach. This is exactly why we conducted research to understand the characteristics of access and use of mobile phones among persons with disabilities. We also aim to understand the barriers that prevent persons with disabilities from adopting and using mobile internet. And the findings that I will be presenting today are drawn from the Mobile Disability Gap Report, published in August 2025. And this is a report which draws on the GSMA customer survey, which is a face-to-face survey covering 14 LMICs in 2024, and it gathers crucial data on the mobile disability gaps. Before I dive into the data, the mobile internet user journey is a framework that we use to understand what is preventing persons with disabilities from owning a mobile phone all the way to accessing its full potential. This journey starts with mobile ownership and progresses to mobile internet awareness, ownership of an internet-enabled phone, to mobile internet adoption in stage 4, and finally to daily and diverse mobile internet use. Understanding where the disability gaps are largest along this journey is key to targeting action and ensuring equal access and use for persons with disabilities. So let's start with mobile ownership. Our latest report finds that persons with disabilities have a relatively high level of mobile phone ownership. On average, 7 in 10 persons with disabilities own a mobile phone across survey countries in Africa. This ratio is 6 in 10 for survey countries in Asia. Well, it's of course encouraging to see high levels of mobile ownership. Persons with disabilities are still less likely than non-disabled persons to own a mobile. And there are still millions of persons with disabilities who lack access to mobile phones, and particularly internet-enabled phones. So including here feature phones or smartphones. And this is very crucial as owning an internet-enabled phone, and especially a smartphone, enables access to assistive technologies such as mobile-enabled screen readers, sign language video content, and so much more. And despite this life-enhancing potential of internet-enabled phones, persons with disabilities remain far less likely than non-disabled persons to own such devices. In this slide, we can see ownership of internet-enabled phones across several countries in Africa, with persons with disabilities in red and non-disabled persons in black. Zooming in into Tanzania, we can see that 39% of non-disabled persons own an internet-enabled phone. However, this drops to 14% for persons with disabilities, leading to a disability gap of 63%. This gap means that persons with disabilities are 63% less likely than non-disabled persons to own an internet-enabled phone. As we can see, the disability gaps in internet-enabled phone ownership are consistently large across all survey countries in Africa, with the lowest in Uganda at 17% and the largest in Tanzania, as we saw. Similarly, in Asia, persons with disabilities remain the least likely to own an internet-enabled phone. In Pakistan, for instance, only 20% of persons with disabilities own an internet-enabled device, as compared to 48% of non-disabled persons, leading to a disability gap of 60%. And even in countries with more developed digital markets, such as the Philippines, persons with disabilities are still 38% less likely than non-disabled persons to own an internet-enabled device. And again, access to an internet-enabled device, and particularly a smartphone, is a crucial first step to getting online. And our data shows that smartphone owners are far more likely to use mobile internet regularly and for a wide range of activities. And indeed, looking at mobile internet adoption levels, in a select market, we find that persons with disabilities are considerably less likely than non-disabled persons to use mobile internet. Looking at Africa, Tanzania had the largest disability gap in mobile internet adoption at 84%. By contrast, Senegal had the highest level of adoption, although still low, with a disability gap of 34%. In Asia, the largest disability gap in mobile internet adoption is in Bangladesh, where only 13% of persons with disabilities are using mobile internet, whereas India had the smallest, although still considerably large, disability gap at 32%. Limited awareness of what mobile internet can offer is a major factor contributing to the disability gaps we just saw. To illustrate this, let's look at the awareness levels among persons with and without disabilities in some of our survey countries. In Africa, disability gaps in mobile internet awareness vary considerably. For example, in Rwanda, only 27% of persons with disabilities are aware of mobile internet, as compared to non-disabled persons at 65%. This results in a disability gap of 58%. In Senegal, this gap is much smaller at only 6%. We find similar variation in Asia as well, where in Pakistan, awareness is high among both groups, whereas in Philippines, only 55% of persons with disabilities are aware of mobile internet, contributing to a disability gap in mobile internet awareness of 38%, which is also the largest recorded among survey countries in Asia. And it's crucial to remember that even when people are aware of mobile internet, there are many who are not yet using it, and especially persons with disabilities. This is because they can face multiple overlapping barriers beyond awareness alone. In this slide, we can see the main barriers among persons with disabilities who are aware of mobile internet. And the top 3 reported barriers to mobile internet adoption and use among persons with disabilities are literacy and digital skills. So this can include many persons with disabilities not understanding how mobile internet can benefit them, and many lacking the basic digital skills needed to use them. Secondly, it includes affordability, which is the cost of accessible internet-enabled devices, along with ongoing data costs or service fees. And lastly, relevance. Some persons with disabilities and their families and caregivers perceive that mobile internet and internet services are not relevant to their lives. This often stems from a lack of targeted marketing that speaks to their needs and a lack of accessible products and services designed for them. There's, of course, Also, concerns around safety and security and barriers related to accessibility and usability persist, as many devices, apps, and customer support channels are still not designed with persons with disabilities in mind. So, given that handset affordability is one of the key challenges and barriers to mobile internet adoption, what can we do to improve it? We define handset affordability through two dimensions, which is the ability to pay and the willingness to pay. Focusing on the first one, addressing ability to pay can be strengthened through three main levers. So, firstly, by reducing the cost of devices to customers. Secondly, by expanding access to device financing. And thirdly, by addressing cost beyond device ownership. There's, of course, other levers that exist and that influence ability to pay, but this might be less within the immediate control of the implementers. The second dimension, willingness to pay, is equally important but often overlooked. This is not just about the price point. Factors such as customer needs, perception, preferences, and their level of knowledge and skills and confidence all matter. Safety and security concerns, social norms, and practical challenges also influence this decision. And it's key to highlight that these issues tend to affect persons with disabilities and other vulnerable groups as well the most. And by addressing these barriers, we can significantly increase willingness to pay and also ability to pay. And there's a variety of strategies that can be implemented to achieve this. And as we've seen so far, owning an internet-enabled device is a crucial step to getting online. And handset affordability is a crucial challenge for persons with disabilities. Across LMICs, the price of an entry-level device in 2024 was approximately $54. This corresponds to 16% of the average monthly income for the average population, here in the orange bar, and a staggering 48% for the poorest 20%. We also see that affordability challenges disproportionately affect underserved group. Women, for example, face higher affordability barriers than men. So, for example, in the chart across LMICs, the cost of an entry-level internet-enabled handset represents 23% of the average monthly income for women, as compared to 12% for men. And these challenges are likely to be even more severe for persons with disabilities, who often have lower income and fewer livelihood opportunities. So, what can stakeholders do to address the mobile disability gap? Our full report provides more specific recommendations, but here are four high-level actions. Firstly, we need to ensure that affordable internet-enabled devices, and especially smartphones, are locally available and accessible in LMICs. If we act now to make smartphones affordable, accessible, and available, there is a genuine opportunity to bring millions of persons with disabilities online. Stakeholders here can explore affordable handset solutions such as device financing, subsidies, and partnerships to reduce costs. Second, we need to build the digital skills and confidence by training persons with disabilities, as well as caregivers and family members. Partnering with OPDs and also using practical training tools like GSMA's mobile internet skills training can help make learning hands-on and very relevant. Third, we must strengthen awareness and perceived relevance. Many persons with disabilities do not yet see the value of mobile internet, so targeted awareness campaigns and storytelling, along with engaging gatekeepers such as families and community leaders, are very essential here. And lastly, the barriers that persons with disabilities face are very interrelated and complex, so no single actor can address this alone. Focused investment and collaboration across the whole ecosystem is very much essential to ensure that persons with disabilities are not left behind. So thank you all very much. I've come to the end of this presentation, and I hand over to Louise.
Thank you. Just going to take a second to spotlight myself. and remove virus spotlight. Thank you so much for sharing. I think some really interesting, I guess, highlights and examples that you shared there. I think for me, particularly wrote down around that kind of such a significant variations between different countries and different regions, between that access and the engagement and the disability gap. I think that's a really interesting element of how different it is in quite close proximity for the uptake and the engagement in this space. We've touched quite a lot on the internet-enabled phones as well, and I think that's what we're going to come to in a bit more depth. So fantastic just to hear around that kind of more global level findings and looking at comparisons between different countries from GSMA and the Mobile Disability Gap report. And I think we're now moving from the micro to the macro. Sorry, opposite way around, from the macro to the micro, as we're going to come on to hear a little bit more about the work that the Global Disability Innovation Hub have been doing as part of our Mobile as AT work, where we talk a lot more around the community level and the digital skills. So some of those elements that were picked up in the report as being really critical. So I shall hand across to my colleague Mariam, who'll be sharing a little bit more around some of the work that we've been doing in this space.
Thank you, Louise. Can I just check that the slides are visible?
Yes, we have them.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. And thank you all for joining. And it's wonderful to hear the insights from the Mobile Disability Gap report. And as I was listening, I was basically nodding my head because I realized how many similarities there are and how our approach sort of piggybacks very nicely on some of the findings that have emerged from that report, even though the research was done in parallel. So it's wonderful to hear that. My name is Mariam Benedicta, as Louise mentioned, and I'm a senior research fellow at the Global Disability Innovation Hub, which is an academic and practice center based at the University College London in the UK. And today I'll talk about our project, which looks at the mobile phone as assistive technology in the Global South, as Kathy already mentioned a little bit about. So I'll go in more detail. So the main research question that we were trying to address with this research was how does mobile phone access impact the quality of life of people with vision and hearing disabilities in the Global South? So we conducted our research in three Global South countries. Firstly, in Brazil, we partnered with organizations in Sao Paulo and in Nairobi, in Kenya, where we worked in Nairobi and Mombasa, and in India, where mainly the research was conducted in Karnataka. So overall, we had 800 participants altogether in the three countries, comprising of people with vision and hearing disabilities, and the research was conducted over a six-month period. The research was funded by the UK International Development through our AT 2030 program, which is funded by the UK International Development and FCDO, and in partnership with AT Scale, a global partnership for assistive technology, and through funds provided by Google. The research was led by UCL, Global Disability Innovation Hub, and our AT 2030 program, and we delivered this in partnership with academic institutions, third-party organizations, and mobile network operators in the three countries. So our research approach, we took a mixed methods research approach, which means that we conducted some baseline understanding and assessment of the participants' digital literacy skills, access to mobile phones, access to internet, and then we also conducted some in-depth semi-structured interviews along the research to understand how they perceived and how the technology and how the mobile phones and internet access impacted their quality of life overall. So to start with, we conducted a 2-day digital skills training where the participants were provided access to a Samsung smartphone. So we particularly used Samsung Galaxy A14 smartphones for this study, and we also provided training to the participants on, for example, depending on their ability. So, for example, we had some participants who had never used a mobile phone before. So we had to take them from unboxing the device, learning how to set up the device, and then using the different accessibility features and apps built into the device. Whereas other participants had used a smartphone before, so they were brought on very quickly onto the accessibility features and then started using different apps that were available on the phones. In addition to the Samsung phones that we provided to the participants, we also provided a 2 gigabytes monthly mobile internet access. As Baralba had mentioned, that mobile internet access is limited in a lot of the LMIC countries. So it was important that to understand the impact, we provide the participants with the internet-enabled smartphones and also regular access to mobile internet to ensure that we have a sort of a basic, a stable foundation for participants to be able to use these devices and understand how it can impact their quality of life. So to begin with, we will hear from two participants with vision impairment from Kenya, who will talk about how they have been using the phone and how it has impacted their day-to-day activities using the accessibility features available in these phones. So I will go ahead and play the video now. If someone can let me know if there are any issues with it so I can adjust it. Thank you.
I am Felista Siombua Kasina. I teach at Thika Primary School for the Blind. I am a Kiswahili teacher.
My name is John Mwangi. I have been a student at Kenyatta University, pursuing a bachelor's degree in education, special needs education, specialization French and history.
When I want to send a message and I'm feeling it is taking long, I used to depend on people. And it was a bit hectic to go looking for somebody to assist me sending, because sometimes I used to write, maybe in the process, if it's a long message, I make a mistake, I delete, then I go looking for assistant. But now sending a voice message or inquiring something from Google through talking, it has made me more independent.
The most helpful aspects of the training that I underwent last year were some things like how to navigate using a certain application known as Google Lookouts, whereby I was taught how to navigate in my house with it, knowing what is on top of the table and also discovering the currencies. Google Lookout, it has been so helpful to me because I don't need to ask someone to read the currency for me, to assist me in identifying how much money is this. I can use the Google Lookout and try to discover the amount of money that I am holding and also the color of the clothes that I am holding. For instance, I can put camera in front like this, and then Google Lookout, it will detect a white shirt or also a black coat.
Some of the changes that I have experienced is going to the Google, inquiring something by talking. That one has assisted me, like when I'm in class and I want to Google a pronunciation of a word, like when I'm teaching English, because I teach Kiswahili, but I still teach other subjects. There is the pronunciation of different words, especially words with ER and AR. Now, instead of going to search and it takes time, we just find the word in the Google and it tells us the right pronunciation. That is one of them. Another thing I have said about accessing my email, maybe when I want to read my payslip, it has brought up confidentiality because I don't have to engage somebody in reading my payslip.
Mobile assistive technology, it's so good. I think it's something that should be encouraged and especially to those people who are like me, who are visually impaired. You can make phone calls, you can communicate easily with people, you can text, and like computers, like the laptops, they're not that portable, but mobile phone can be portable.
Now, I can travel from here up to countryside without any sighted guide because I can call a rider take me to the vehicle, public transport or an Uber, go where I want, then come back. That is where we are. We are now very independent with technology. Where we are, it is very safe. It is very nice that somebody who is visually impaired can operate their own phone. You can do your transactions without involving anybody. You can read your WhatsApp messages. You can join different WhatsApp groups because you are not tiring anybody to read or answer, respond to any messages.
Great. So the video shows the really significant positive impact on the quality of life, the independence, the social inclusion, and access to information for people, for our participants. I'll move on to the next slide. And now I will go a little bit deeper into some of our findings. So firstly, again, as very consistent with the GSMA report findings, we found that the mobile internet access and affordability were common barriers to mobile internet connectivity. So a lot of the participants did mention that their ability to access mobile internet beyond the project is still very much limited. So we calculated, or we measured something called the severe data precarity, which is a concept that we came up with, and it is based on the high mobile internet use. So participants who use more than 2 gigabytes of data per week. So the monthly 2 gigabytes data that was provided, the participants who depleted all of that data within 1 week, and also the high impact of the mobile internet data depletion. So how much disruption this depletion of data within a week caused for the participants. So let's have a look at the findings on severe data precarity. So on the screen, I'm showing a table, a matrix, which shows the results for different disabilities and broken down by participants who had access to Wi-Fi and people who did not have access to Wi-Fi. So the table shows that deaf and hard of hearing people who had access to Wi-Fi were at the lowest risk of data precarity or experiencing disruption due to high consumption of internet access, internet data. Similarly, blind and low vision participants who had access to Wi-Fi were slightly higher at 40%, but not, sort of not more than half. Similarly, deaf and hard of hearing people who did not have access to Wi-Fi were still at 40%. But what we found that was really interesting, that blind and low vision people who had no access to Wi-Fi were significantly higher at the risk of being impacted by data disruption at 62% compared to the other groups and other conditions. We also looked at the compound effect on data precarity. So, for example, looking at risk factors of disability. So people with vision or hearing disabilities, gender, as in men and women, and location. So people who were either in urban areas or rural areas, and whether or not they had access to Wi-Fi. And the results showed that women with blindness or low vision living in rural areas with no access to Wi-Fi were the most disadvantaged groups and were 8 times more likely to experience data precarity compared to deaf and hard of hearing group living and men and living in urban areas with Wi-Fi access. So it does show the importance of and the negative impact of not having enough access to Wi-Fi, mobile internet in rural areas, and the importance of having mobile internet access supported by the stable infrastructure in those areas as well for women with visual impairment. So why are blind and low vision or people with vision impairments most at the risk? So our results show that BLV, or blind and low vision people, were 2.6 times more likely to face severe data precarity compared to deaf and hard of hearing group. And this is due to the constant reliance on internet connectivity. So, for example, our findings show that a lot of the BLV participants use Google Maps for navigation and different apps. So, as mentioned by the participant in the video as well, that they had a lot of demands for assistance apps. So, things like Lookout, or there's another app called Be My Eyes, which is very regularly used. and it is internet dependent. So it is very crucial for the BLV group to be able to access mobile internet when they're out and about and they're using these assistive apps that require internet access. Similarly, wherever the participants were indoors, so for example, at school, at colleges, and in work environment, or even at shopping centers, they opted to use Wi-Fi access. But when they were out and about, they had no Wi-Fi access, so they opted to use mobile data more. Hence, they depleted the data more, and they had higher impact of the data depletion. Now I will go a little bit deeper into the mobile phone usage. So we will look at the accessibility features used, the use of mobile money apps, communication and social media, productivity apps, and multi-purpose apps as well. So firstly, for the BLV group, we trained the participants on accessibility features in the phone, such as TalkBack and Lookout and Google Assistant. And we see a very high uptake of TalkBack and Lookout features overall in all countries. So on the screen, there's a chart that shows above 85% adoption of TalkBack across all 3 countries and above 60% uptake of Lookout across all 3 countries, which and highest being in Kenya at 93% compared to the other 2 countries. Similarly, for Google Assistant, we have a slightly lower uptake at the highest is in Brazil, which is 36%, and 34% in India, and 17% in Kenya only. And from our interview findings and observations in the training, I think one of the reasons we could assume that is due to the Google Assistant primary interaction being in English, and due to the mobile phone capacity, the delayed voice interaction also limited effective use of Google Assistant as well for participants who were not fluent in English. So here we see a slightly lower adoption of Google Assistant. For deaf and hard of hearing group, again, we see a very high uptake of live transcription and sound notification and live caption features, which is all built into one, where we see over 90% adoption across all 3 countries, and in Kenya showing 99%, which is an amazing result because our findings also show that people were able to integrate live captions and transcription into their daily life. So, for example, when they didn't have access to a sign language interpreter, they were able to use this feature to interpret meetings, lectures, and general communication with friends and family as well. We also see a moderate uptake of a feature called Sound Amplifier, which is used by hard of hearing participants to amplify the sound that is being played on around them. And again, the chart shows a low uptake mainly because the feature is only used by hard of hearing participants and not necessarily by people who are deaf or have profound hearing loss. In terms of mobile money, overall, we saw that 44% of the participants use mobile payments, which is a fantastic result. I'm sorry, I realize now the box at the bottom is covering the chart. So the most commonly used apps that we saw the participants use was PicPay in Brazil, Google Pay in India, and M-Pesa in Kenya. Similarly, a really significant uptake in all 3 countries. In India, in particular, we saw almost an equal use of Google Pay between the deaf and hard of hearing participants and blind and low vision participants. And in in Brazil and in Kenya, we saw that the deaf and hard of hearing participants were twice more likely to use mobile payments than blind and low vision participants. And this could be due to various reasons, but one of the reasons could also point to the accessibility of these apps and accessibility of mobile payments for blind and low vision groups. In terms of communication and social media app, this is where we saw a huge amount of uptake across all the groups. For example, in Facebook and WhatsApp were the most commonly used, which showing above 70% results across all groups. but more actively, more active use in Kenya in particular, where we can see above 80%, 85% rather, Facebook use, and above 95% use for WhatsApp in Kenya. In TikTok, in the chart, we can see that there was a moderate to high use with no use mentioned in India, particularly because of the TikTok ban in the country. We saw a lower uptake of Instagram and TikTok in the blind and partially sighted group compared to deaf and hard of hearing group. And again, this points to the accessibility of the video content. And because these apps are primarily video dependent, a lot of the BLV participants, potentially avoided using these apps. Additionally, we saw very high use of WhatsApp Business, which is an alternative to the regular WhatsApp app, but it is built for businesses to have business, interactions and communication with customers. We saw a very high use of that in Kenya, particularly in with the deaf and hard of hearing group, and it shows that there is more inclination towards self-employment and entrepreneurship in this country compared to lower uptake in India and Brazil. We also noticed a very high use of light versions of Facebook and Instagram apps. And when we inquired that from the participants, we found that these are the same apps provided by the same providers, manufacturers, mainly Meta in this case, but it is low on the data consumption and bandwidth consumption. So a lot of people actually opted to use these apps to prevent depleting their mobile internet data. In terms of productivity, we saw very high use of Microsoft Office across all countries. Again, Kenya showing a much higher use than the other countries. But also we noticed that the percentage of blind and low vision participants in India and Brazil was considerably lower than deaf and hard of hearing group. So this can again point to many different things, maybe digital literacy and skills training being one of them. In terms of video conferencing apps, we looked at Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet use. And again, here we saw that there was differences in adoption rates by country and disability type, possibly due to device compatibility and internet access issues. But excuse me. But again, we see quite a bit, quite a higher use among Kenyan participants, both blind and deaf groups, of Teams, for example, very high use of Zoom as well, but considerably, consistent use between Kenya and India of Meet, but slightly lower in Brazil. Some of the multi-purpose apps. So before I mentioned that participants were commonly using WhatsApp and Facebook, and of course we saw a significant use of YouTube consistently across all three countries. But when we asked the participants what were they particularly using these apps for, we found out that people were using WhatsApp for communication with friends and family, but also for sharing classroom notes, for attending group meetings, and also communicating with peers and clients. Similarly, they were using Facebook for access to information and participating in local and community groups, and YouTube for learning different types of activities. For example, some of the participants mentioned using YouTube to learn cooking or sign language. So, even though the apps are primarily designed for one purpose, our participants were able to adapt them for different purposes, and that indicates the higher uptake as well. And this is very consistent with the GSMA report findings as well, as we saw from the video, that the participants was able to use YouTube for accessing learning related information and using WhatsApp to share information with peers. In particular, we also notice a very high use of, even though it shows quite consistently in the chart here, with over 95%, almost 100% use of WhatsApp across all the participant groups across all countries, we found that the deaf and hard of hearing participants consistently use WhatsApp for video calls, which allowed them to communicate in sign with their with their deaf and hard of hearing peers as well. So that was again a very innovative use of WhatsApp, which was not offered or afforded to this particular group before they were able to use WhatsApp and mobile internet as well.
We're a little bit running short on time, Mariam, so maybe you could enter the conclusion. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm just gonna summarize our findings. So as I've hopefully demonstrated through the slide deck as well, but obviously you can find out more information on our website. The mobile phones can have a significant impact on improving the quality of life of blind and deaf individuals in lower and middle income countries. Our findings also show that the voice-based interactions, such as with Google Assistant, they require more accuracy and training. Our findings also show that the digital accessibility is crucial for to create equitable digital experiences for people with all disabilities. So it's really important to focus on regulation and compliance of the apps that are being built for mobile platforms. And access to mobile internet and digital AT, it's a key barrier to inclusion. But when those barriers are removed, our findings show that people are able to access information. They are able to be, included in social settings, but also they're able to have access to, access in work related settings as well, and better access to education. So in terms of recommendations, there are very sort of quick 4 recommendations, which are again very aligned with the GSMA recommendations, is that to improve access to mobile internet, it's important that the mobile network operators consider subsidizing mobile data and zero-rated essential apps for high-risk users such as blind and partially sight, blind and low vision, so they're able to use maps and human assistant apps. Similarly for deaf and hard of hearing groups, so they're able to use WhatsApp video calls to communicate and share information with each other. Digital skills, digital literacy is extremely important to be disability groups to be able to use mobile accessibility features. As I mentioned, digital accessibility compliance is extremely important to ensure that when people do have access to mobile internet-enabled mobile devices, they are able to access services and features of different apps. And finally, because this project was delivered in partnership with Google, with ATScale and academic organizations and mobile network operators, we're able to highlight a lot of the issues that that can be addressed by mainstreaming mobile, accessible mobile phones. So just another recommendations for further collaboration between partners and service providers to ensure that mobile phones can be delivered as essential assistive technology in lower and middle income countries. So thank you and apologies for going over time. Our more information is available on our website. So if Harrison or Louise can share the link in the chat so people can access, and I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Really interesting stuff, and I think particular kind of takeaways there is that the depletion of data, I think, is a really key point that came out throughout that presentation. And really interesting the differences then between impairment types and also how that broke down and was used in different regions for different apps, and the engagement of that. So I'd like to welcome to the floor now Professor Kathy Holloway, who's just going to give a little bit of a summary of maybe some of the kind of aligned themes that we've heard so far, and then we shall move into our panel.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. And thank you for all the questions that are coming in. Michael, I've just spotted yours, and Tom, some of yours, and David. So I will get to those in a second. Maybe some people can answer them as I'm speaking. So I suppose some takeaways. Hopefully you've heard from our speakers that what's pretty much clear is that mobile technology and increasingly artificial intelligence, for all of the work that is look up or look to speak or any of those is powered by artificial intelligence. And this holds extraordinary promise as a tool for inclusion, autonomy and participation for people with disabilities, for all of us. But we've also seen that this promise is not automatic. We've seen that the same technologies that can connect us can also deepen our divides if we do not act with intention and with care. So there were some common threads there. Mariam picked up on a few, and Louise has mentioned them, but I'll just reiterate, both across GSMA's global research and our own work in GDI Hub on the ground, I identified 5 themes. The first is affordability and access. Devices and data must be within reach for everyone, not just the privileged few, and not just people who live in cities, and not just people of a certain gender. So it includes women, includes those in rural community. Digital skills and literacy. We must invest in building confidence and capability so that technology empowers rather than excludes. And language, we saw in the second video that people might speak Swahili, but they're also speaking English, and they might also speak many other languages. And many things are shipped just with English, actually only with US English sometimes. So as AI becomes more embedded in our digital lives, and actually voice agents are just proliferating, the market of voice agents is so large, and nearly every language model is excluding people who speak differently. And we must understand that when people speak differently, and we might struggle to understand them, or our device struggles to understand them, there's a good question about where the disability lies, because the person is communicating and other people can understand them. It's just that we can't understand. So potentially the disability actually is within the relationship of the speaker and the hearer. And the technology can really bridge that gap if we include diversity in our language models by default. And that will only happen through collaboration. All of this happens through collaboration. So when industry and policymakers, researchers, and persons with disabilities organisations, OPDs, work together, and OPDs are, absolutely essential for the continued support of digital skills and continued support of capacity building. We have to make sure that OPDs are listened to and are part of the conversation as we design programmes, but also as programmes leave a country so that they can continue. So a small call to action before we go into our panel. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I say it nearly about 4 times a day that technology is agnostic, but our choices are not. We have the power and the responsibility to shape a digital future that is fair, accessible, and inclusive. So let's not leave any of us behind because of where we live, or because of the language we speak, or the way that we might communicate. So there is a world in which every person, regardless of ability or circumstance, can use technology to learn, work, connect, thrive, rest even. And that world is within our reach if we choose to build it together. So I hope before we go into the panel, you're beginning to feel a bit inspired. I see some detailed questions coming our way, which I'm looking forward to getting into, because it is the detail that will help us unpack this and move us forward. So thank you all for being part of this journey. And I believe we're going into the panel.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, so can I ask all the panelists to turn their cameras on, and then we shall spotlight our panel members so we can all see them. So we have Karen, and we are just spotlighting our other panel members. George, if you could turn your video on, and then we'll be able to spotlight you. And we need to spotlight you too.
Mariam as well.
Mariam. Mariam, we need your camera on. Perfect. Wonderful. George, we'll need your camera on if you're able to do that to spotlight you, else we'll try and get you in discussion. Okay, fantastic. Thank you everyone for bearing with us as we get ourselves sorted. So as we move into the panel, we've got a few set questions we're going to ask some of our panel members, and we shall also be asking our panel members who you've not met yet to introduce themselves as they begin to respond to these questions. So the first question we're going to ask to Dr. Karen Smith, who's joining us from Vodacom. So I shall leave Karen to introduce herself. But the question we wanted to ask was really kind of, so far we've heard kind of GSA and GDI Hub share a little bit around some of the barriers to internet-enabled device ownership and mobile internet adoption for persons with disabilities. So we wondered if you could share some of the key interventions that yourselves at Vodacom are working on in this space, that might kind of help address some of these barriers and kind of respond to some of the challenges that we've heard so far today.
Thank you so much. So I'm Karen Smith. I'm from the Vodacom Group. I'm the accessibility lead, and I'm responsible to drive accessibility and digital inclusion into all of our 8 markets across Africa. So well done on GSMA for always doing this research and highlighting the barriers of internet or smartphone ownership and the gap in internet usage for persons with disabilities. So we've done a few, we introduced a few initiatives to address these barriers. When it comes to promoting affordability, because we do know that unemployment is very high for people with disabilities. So, and I think, yeah, so in terms of addressing the affordability, we introduced entry-level smartphones and cloud phones at about $14 per device, so that people can at least access these devices. Another big initiative that we started about 2 years ago was in Kenya, in partnership with our Safaricom market, where we established the East Africa Device Assembly Kenya, where they assemble smartphones, and the benefit of that is then to produce these phones locally, so that we can reduce import duties and costs. Also, if you look at some of our markets, if I take South Africa, for example, we've got a program called Easy to Own Apple devices, where we refurbish used phones and they become good as new. And that brings the price down significantly, and gives people, access to those types of devices. Also, we've got various pay-as-you-go financing options for smartphones, like in Kenya, Madogo program, where they can pay off, daily installments. There's quite a lot of things which we are doing in South Africa recently, and this was also done, facilitated by GSMA, was the removing of luxury tax for smartphones, meaning 2,500 Rand was removed from devices, and already we can see an increase in uptake of smartphones just on that, removing that type of tax. Also, for people with disabilities specifically, we offer them bespoke tailored packages, so that we only give them what they need. For example, if a deaf person says to us, I use video calling, I do not use voice calls, I do not speak to people, then we will take away that voice calls, and we will only give them data and SMS as an example, so that they don't have to pay for something which they don't use. We also provide free apps and contact center services, a video sign language services for customers using sign language, where they can call into the contact center, and third parties if they want to contact doctors and restaurants. In terms of digital skills, we've introduced digital skills at various organizations for people with disabilities, and I heard Kathy say that organizations for people with disabilities is so important, and that's why we've got the partnership with them. We provide the devices and then train the trainer, and they will then train their visually impaired members how to use the accessibility features of these mobile phones. So in terms of South Africa, I can say that smartphone penetration across the group reached 64% in 2025, showing our digital inclusion efforts. But of course, affordability in digital skills is such a known problem or challenge in Africa, and I'm glad to say that the ICT industry in Africa is really working hard to breach this gap.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, and really interesting just to hear that kind of highlights and reflections on the cost piece and how that might relate to local production and also the tax challenges. And we see that a lot across assistive technologies, and really interesting that's also replicated in the mobile phone space as well. So we shall now come on to hear from Farusha, who's joining us from Dialogue. Let me get the right name. So I'd like you, if you would like to take the call, introduce yourselves and maybe answer the same question. So tell us just a little bit around the work that you're doing in this space and I guess kind of any initiatives or applications that you're working on.
Right. Thank you. So I think GSMA and GDI have done a lot of work in terms of, I think these findings are very crucial. So I just a brief introduction to myself. I'm Tharusha. I'm leading digital inclusion and digital sustainable innovation for Dialogue Asia PLC, which is one of the biggest telcos in Sri Lanka, which serving over 20 million customers out of the 22 million population in Sri Lanka. So coming from that, digital inclusion has been a major thing. It is in our core to serve towards all our communities, specifically when we focused on persons with disabilities. I think 80% of the Sri Lankans live in rural areas, and then the persons with disabilities coming from a lot of economic challenges as well as literacy levels are so low in this segment. So we looking into that. We started off looking into this space by giving them digital literacy. Of course, GSMS, MISST, MES program helped us a lot in terms of after localizing it to local languages, disseminating it through our platforms is something that we have done to help digital literacy across these people. Because when we even give them assistive technology, we saw that the uptake was a bit slow because the tech savviness was a bit low. So we have to go into the ground, use this program to on ground activities for them to do trainings, and then train the trainer programs to make sure that they understand assistive technology and how to use them. So that is one initiative that we start off with, and then of course affordability in terms of mobile phones. We have partnered with original equipment manufacturers to make sure that we bring in much affordable smartphones compared to a smartphone, maybe 5G enabled smartphone right now in Sri Lanka. It is about $250 to $300. Now we have made them affordable to less than $100 or $100. So that is making them affordable for them to make sure that they understand the capacity of the technology. It's we did this back in 2014 for 4G as well, to make sure that we drive behavioral change, making these devices accessible, and also giving them payment plans and things like that through our network, having them onboarded on a add to bill. The payment methods, not if they don't have a credit card, also we make sure the monthly payment is monthly payment goes through an add to bill process through their mobile bill itself, so that making them accessible through them and also affordable to make sure that the devices that we have are going to them, making sure that also that the technology that we have is available for them. I think in terms of assistive technology, we have partnered with DefTalk, who is from a Pakistani company, who has helped us to bring in sign language interpretation services to the deaf community in Sri Lanka, again at an affordable rate, where normal sign language interpretation cost about $15 per hour, $15 per 2 hours. Now it's available for them on their phone about less than $1 per hour. So that is what we have make them affordable in terms of through assistive technology, real-time sign language, on-demand sign language interpretation service to the deaf community in Sri Lanka. And then another initiative that we have done is Petrolex. We have worked with a Russian entity to make sure that we give them an affordable hearing aid, to making their smartphone a hearing aid. Again, affordability was a main thing, and localization to Sri Lankan languages. So affordability, coming from affordability point of view, the global market rate was about $12 to $15, but through the Sri Lankan market, we bought it down to $1, making it accessible for the Sri Lankan market. I think two impact stories from these two assistive technologies that we have seen. For Petrolex, we saw during COVID, where a hearing impaired student was unable to listen to university lectures because the hearing aid battery was dead and he was unable to get the battery changed. But through Petrolex, he connected through the mobile phone and then was able to continue his studies. And in terms of Deaf Talk, a mother recently, who reached out to us, said she was able to go to an interview to get their daughter into a school, to participate on that school interview to get the daughter into the school. I think these are some of the amazing impact stories that we have heard. I think in terms of relevancy, I think what we have done is making sure all of these technology that we bring in, not just affordable, it's also localized to the local languages, and their use accept. We do use acceptance testing. We make sure that the user, whatever we give is according to the user and their needs. I think that is some things that we have done.
Thank you. And I think really important point to finish on, that kind of localization piece and really responding to the need, and to the need that's identified by individuals. And I know there was also a question in the chat around technologies in terms of interpretation, and particularly for deaf and hard of hearing. So fantastic to have some examples with that, and I know that there's also some work that's happening through GDI Hub and many of our accelerators that we work alongside as well in that space. So it feels like a really exciting time. But I think we've also heard throughout today, and particularly from the panel there, some of the challenges as well. So I'd love to introduce and open the floor to George. Please do introduce yourself to George. It'd be fantastic maybe if you could respond to a little bit of what you've heard so far, and maybe particularly focus on what you would say the priorities are in terms of tackling some of these key barriers.
Thank you very much. Hope you can hear me well.
We can hear you. There's a little bit of disruption on the line, but please do go ahead and we'll see how we get
on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very much. I'm glad. My name is George Chola. I'm hard of hearing. I use hearing aid as well. And without hearing aid, I'm not able to hear, but as well, I communicate through spoken language and sign language as well. So in my entire life, I also grew in the deaf community. And this situation started at the age of 6 years. That's why. So as an advocate, I work directly with the deaf, blind as well. Those are the communities I work in Kenya here. So as someone who also contributed into the mobile assistive project technology, and maybe I've seen how the powerful digital inclusions can be when accessibility, affordability, and digital skills come together. So through this project, as I saw the first-hand time smartphone users gaining confidence and independence, as well the new opportunities in communication, education, and also in their daily living. And at the same time, I also saw the real barriers, maybe especially unaffordable devices, limited accessibility features in the low-cost phones, and language challenges, and the need of continuous support rather than one-off training. As well today, as we focus on people mature technology, ensuring that all persons with disability can fully participate in the digital world. Maybe state to your questions, maybe you have cast the priorities from the user's perspective. One, it's about the affordable smartphones that keep all accessible features, they're affordable. So many persons with disability, maybe let's please speak for the experience of the deaf community. Maybe majority of them cannot afford good smartphones, and maybe the very cheap phones often remove important accessible features. So you find user needs devices that are low cost but still have the screen readers, good sound quality, the vibrations, alerts, and captions, magnifiers, as well the sign language friendly options there. So if fonts are too expensive or they lack these features, then people might be excluded from the digital services. Then too, we have the continuous digital skills training, maybe not one-time workshops, I mean on that. Most users need an ongoing support, especially for the first-time smartphone users. One training sessions is not enough people to learn everything because users need a follow-up sessions, refreshers classes, a practical help so that they can improving their digital skills. This also builds the confidence as well. It helps them use technology every day, not just during the training. From the information that you've tried to gather, not just people within urban area, but also those within the marginalized rural communities. And then again, localizing the content in Kenyan Sign Language, and it must be in a way accessible format. You'll realize that many digital platforms are in English, and or spoken. They're in English and or spoken language only. So which is also another barrier. So users sometimes need informations, videos, instructions in Kenyan Sign Language. So plus accessible formats such as audio descriptions, simple language captions, and maybe talking of tactical information for the blind, deaf users. So when a content is localized, people understand better and use the services more. And again, it's about affordable data and a stable network connection. So if someone has a smartphone, they can fully participate online when data bundles are too expensive or the network is weak. Users need low-cost data plans, community Wi-Fi options, and a stronger network coverage so that they can access learning, communication, and service without interruptions. The last part is the balance of access. This is access, skills, and relevance. So digital inclusion works only when there are three things that comes together. One is through access, skills, and relevance. When talk of access, people must have an affordable and accessible device. And when talk of skills, people must know how to use the technology confidently. And then when talk of relevance, online content and apps must be meaningful to their lives. So if one part is missing, then the users are left behind. And sustainable inclusion happens when all these three work together. Yeah, thank you very much. And those are the things that I try to capture when it comes to priority for the user's perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. I think some key elements you've really highlighted there in terms of keeping the access features and making sure they're available even on low-cost devices. I think that's really critical and something that will continue to need to be a priority as we move forwards. And the ongoing support, I think that's also really critical here in terms of that building those digital skills and evolving as the technology evolves is obviously a really significant challenge, particularly as we're seeing AI and different types of voice technologies being more present across the use of digital phones as an assistive technology. So we shall now come to some of the panelists we heard earlier on today. So we will come to Bora first and then Mariam. And I think we've talked quite a lot about the challenges that we've seen and some of those barriers. And so now maybe we should flip the conversation with kind of 10 minutes, 12 minutes left of the call today, maybe about thinking around how we look at driving some of those interventions at scale. So I think it'd be really interesting just to think about how some of the learnings that we've talked through today and some of those barriers, some of the priorities that we need to think about as we're looking to reach kind of millions of disabled people who would really benefit from access to this technology. So I shall come to you, Bora, first, maybe just to do a bit of some summary of that.
Thanks, Louise, and yeah, thanks to all the panelists for very interesting insights. So in terms of the research and the work that GSMA is doing this, from the work on the Mobile Disability Gap report, we can very much see that the scale of digital exclusion is very much large and persistent. So as I tried to highlight during the presentation at the start of this webinar, we see that across all of the survey countries in which we conducted fieldwork, persons with disabilities are very much less likely than non-disabled persons to own an internet-enabled device and to use mobile internet. And especially thinking about smartphone ownership in some of the markets, persons with disabilities are up to 79% less likely to own a smartphones. And as I also mentioned during the presentation, smartphones are the key gateway to getting online and to using assistive technologies. And another interesting finding from our research that I think is very important to highlight is that the biggest drop-off is at the point that matters most for assistive technologies. So what we found is that the largest drop-off for persons with disabilities in that mobile internet user journey framework I mentioned at the start of my presentation, and that largest drop-off is between mobile internet awareness and owning an internet-enabled phone. So, for example, in Kenya, we know that 65% of persons with disabilities are aware, but only 28% proceed to owning an internet-enabled phone. And this is very important because if persons with disabilities do not have access to affordable and accessible internet-enabled phones, they cannot access these built-in accessibility features or mobile-enabled assistive technology applications. Thinking about further research, I think there's, of course, encouraging evidence, but more is needed in terms of where mobile operators introduce accessible customer journeys, affordable handsets, or targeted digital skills training. These gaps will begin to close. So it's definitely also important that evidence broadens. And it's also important to think about and explore how different disability types influence digital inclusion. And of course, very much important to think about intersectionality and intersectional factors and how gender and disability and income and rurality compounds the exclusion of persons with disabilities. And lastly, I think we also need more evidence from persons with disabilities themselves on how users learn, how they can adopt and benefit from these accessibility features over time.
Thank you, Bora. And Mariam, as we come to you, I wonder whether it might also be interesting for you just to touch on kind of different actors in this space. So as we look at what some of the solutions needed to offer more of these technologies at scale, kind of who's responsible and who can drive that impact?
Sure. I think firstly, I echo very much everything Barbara has said in terms of the evidence needed and the gap that we have at the moment, not only in mainly because I work mainly in Kenya, but across the board in all of the countries that we research. I think in terms of actors, we were quite. I think we were able to get a lot of rich insights from our research, mainly because we worked in collaboration with OBDs, with technology developers like Google, and mobile network operators, because we were able to bring these actors together to understand their needs and their motivations, but also present the insights back to them to create that sort of cycle of how we can create affordable, accessible technologies and advocate. There was a question related to advocacy and lobbying as well. So I think having all these actors involved in research and being on the ground is really helpful to create a more inclusive space within mobile and mobile device and internet access. um, Another thing that I I forgot to mention in my presentation was, again, the work with OBDs is extremely important, mainly because they were our delivery partners, but also in a subsequent project we did with OBDs, building on some of the work from mobile research, is OBDs as, training partners as well. So people who are because these are grassroots organizations, they work on the ground in communities, and a lot of the people in the community who need the support actually get that from OBDs. So we need to work with these organizations to ensure that they have the necessary skills and devices and the resources to be able to provide the support and training to people in the community. So again, as Terusha, sorry if I mispronounced your name, also mentioned, as well as Dr. Karen, that we need to work with local partners to make sure that we are creating systems and, I'm sorry, that's my cat. Systems that are scalable and also they are individualized to the context that we are operating in, because it's impossible as as one organization to understand the global context. So definitely partnership and collaboration is key moving forward. But I'll also pass on to Kathy if she would like to add anything.
Louise, I double checked there wasn't, because it will probably come to time. So is it okay for?
Yeah, do you want to say a few words and then we'll just come to the rest of the panel just to respond in terms of those core priorities moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, at risk of repeating what's already been said by whether it's Dr. Karen or Boral, Mariam, George, anybody, we know what works. It's relatively simple what works. We have accessible handsets, we have training, we have them be affordable. So we know that. It's like I say to my students sometimes, we seem to be able to put rockets to the moon, and yet we can't seem to get eyeglasses to people. So part of that is to do with will and funding. And to do with how we value the inclusion of persons with disabilities in our society. And also, I think, getting the belief into people that, Dr. Smith mentioned about it not being a luxury item. There's a when we wanted to do that project with Google and at scale, the reason Google came to the table was because I reached out to Google and said, Christopher, we need money for the handsets. There's no way for me to use UK taxpayer money to buy these handsets. Everyone believes this isn't an assistive technology, but it is an assistive technology. And I kept being told by various funders that people would sell the phones. And I kept saying back to people, if people sell the phones, that's a brilliant data point. We then know that the phone is not as valuable as the money it's worth. And then we can move on. But at least we'll have answered the question, right? So we know that people don't sell the phones. I don't sell my phone. Nobody sells their phone. It's probably the most important bit of assistive technology I have. So we know that people need these devices. Everybody needs them, and we know that they empower people, and they also just give people a bit of joy and entertainment. So how we get on with that is working together, working at the grassroots, making sure that there is local OPD involvement, organisations for persons with disability or disabled persons organisation, depending on which part of the world you're in. And that we're also connected to people like, whether it be Vodafone or any of the other telecoms, to make sure that they are pushing ahead accessible policies, which many of them are now, which is great to see, as are many of the handset providers. And now I think it is just about getting those handsets in people's hands, giving them the training that they require, and helping them to do what any of us want to do with our phones.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, so critical just to have that evidence piece that these phones, used as assistive technology, are not being sold and they have such a huge impact on people's lives. Karen, I think it would be great to come to you maybe just to kind of wrap up in terms of your thoughts in terms of what the next steps are in terms of scaling up this technology and kind of what yourselves are also doing in that space. You're muted currently.
Sorry, I'm on mute. No, I'm saying, as some of the speakers already said, in terms of scaling up and ensuring that every person with a disability can access and own a device and access the internet, I can't emphasize enough the importance of partnerships with governments, with public-private sector, with organizations for people with disabilities, with regulators, with the industry, handset manufacturers, mobile network operators. The whole ecosystem must come together and drive this to scale it up, to ensure that we are able to promote the inclusion of people with disabilities, that every person can own a device, so that they can access the internet and really are able to participate in a digital society. I know as our time is just about up, so I'll just leave it at that.
Wonderful, thank you. And we'll come to you, Farusha. It'd be fantastic just to hear a few reflections if I don't knock my light over, which I didn't manage to bash, as we come up to wrap up the session.
Yes, I think I agree with Dr. Karen there. We are also making sure that all our customers will have access to internet and devices, not just our customers at Dialogue or entire Sri Lankan community as well. So I think we have currently started tagging all our customers in terms of disabilities, and then so that we can provide them all access to our services. So I think giving them 100% as accessibility to all our services, that would be one thing that we want to do. And outside from Dialogue, I think we are working on a project to making sure to empower. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Yeah, okay. So I think we are working with the Ministry of Education to making sure that we give assistive technology to the Sri Lankan students who have disabilities, to make sure that they have accessibility. They will be able to continue their education without any barriers. So I think that is something that we are looking forward to.
Thank you so much for sharing what fantastic programs and projects that it sounds like you're rolling out, and so much support to the community and that kind of ongoing learning and access piece as well. So it'd be great to find out a little bit more. I know we had lots of questions come into the Q&A box. So thank you so much for everyone for putting those in, and for our panel who've very diligently been responding in detail to those. So so fantastic to see some of those more detailed questions being answered as well. So we'll come to you now, George. It would just be fantastic, as we're about to close the session, just to hear any final reflections or points that you'd like people to come away with from today. I think George's video might have frozen. I'm not sure if you're still on the line, George.
I think he's frozen. He's trying to come back.
We seem to have lost George. So we shall begin to wrap up today's session. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining today. We'd really encourage you to go and deep dive into some of the reports and research that's been shared. We'll follow up with this webinar with a link to the recording and some of those key resources, so you can find out a little bit more. Huge thank you to everyone who's joined today, and particular thank you to our captioner and our international sign language interpreters, who've been doing a sterling job keeping up with us all speaking probably a little bit too fast. And really exciting, I think, just to hear so much work going on in this space and so much potential. But also, I think we've touched on quite a lot the value of having those evidence points and us being able to push them forwards and build on this kind of foundational work that we've all done. So I think we'll wrap up there in the interest of time. Thanks for joining, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.